His childhood sweetheart committed suicide. All because he married me. For 30 years of marriage, our most frequent wish for each other was a miserable death. Before I died, we had just had a huge fight. He drugged my tea before slamming the door and leaving. The moment the poison took effect, I knew who the murderer was. I forced myself to hold on until we got home, then plunged a knife into his abdomen, dragging him down to hell with me. But in my dying moments, I heard him stop his men from killing me, using his last breath to urge them, "Give her the antidote I found. After I die, you must continue investigating who has been poisoning her all along. And when she wakes up, don't tell that crazy woman. It was me who found the antidote for her." I closed my eyes as a single tear fell. At the last moment, I realized how utterly wrong we were. After rebirth, I decisively changed my aspirations to the other side of the ocean. From then on, the sky was high and the sea wide. Year after year without me, leaving him and his beloved to journey through mountains and rivers. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. When I opened my eyes again, I was nestled in a warm embrace, with a spoonful of ginger soup being fed to my lips. I turned my head abruptly, meeting Evan's bloodshot eyes. For a moment, both of us froze. This was the day after I had stood in the pouring rain all night to force him to marry me. Evan clearly hadn't slept a wink, with faint stubble already shadowing his jaw. "Drink it yourself." When he saw me wake up, the worry in his eyes vanished instantly, pushing me away. The familiar tension from our past life resurfaced between us. "Evan," I spoke with a hoarse voice. Hold me again." He got up and left, but the next second, I hugged him from behind. The tension in his muscles was palpable beneath my palm. "Sabrina." He gripped both my hands tightly. "Forced fruit is never sweet." "I know." I pressed tightly against his back, feeling his warmth for the last time. "I've figured it out." "Figured it out." His sneer was filled with exhaustion. "You always say that." Forcing my hands apart, he pushed me onto the bed and left without looking back. The figure storming out the door felt eerily like the last glimpse of a past life. I lowered my head and looked at my palm. His warmth still lingered there, but he didn't know. This time, I truly understood. I am the sister who grew up with him, the daughter of his late benefactor, the little neighbor girl who always gives him headaches. Only, I am not his wife. I closed my eyes. I've figured it out. I let go. The phone vibrated. It was a call from a subordinate. "Miss, we've surveyed Eri Lake. Didn't you always want to hold your wedding here? Should we change the venue to this location? Go ask Tiffany. She likes the sea too. If she agrees, then we'll change it." "Miss." The subordinate thought they had misheard. "But you're the bride." "Not anymore. Starting today." After hanging up, I called the professor who supervised my PhD studies. "Have you made up your mind?" "Not getting married. Planning to go abroad with me for the project." The mentor confirmed repeatedly. I nodded firmly. "I've made up my mind. No regrets." The mentor sighed in relief and quickly signed the documents. "Afraid I might change my mind. Although you're about to graduate, they actually always wanted me to keep you. Many people applied for this program, but no one can replace you. You, as long as you can think it through clearly, that's good. As for marriage, you can always come back and consider it 3 years later. These few years won't make a difference." I felt somewhat guilty. Originally, they specifically requested me for this program. It's just that I've been stubbornly clinging to Evan and refused to accept my advisor's invitation no matter what. The advisor had no choice but to look for someone else. But in the end, no one met the requirements, ultimately delaying the entire project. As I finished handling the last documents in the office and was about to leave, a familiar cry suddenly came from outside the door. I clearly put in so much effort, but I never expected Sabrina to suddenly take the spot. All my hard work this month has gone to waste. Whoa, it's Tiffany. I clenched the doorknob tightly. Evan's white moonlight. The woman with whom I've had no reconciliation for 30 years. Opening the door, A familiar face appeared before me. Evan looked down with an unprecedented air of dominance. Sabrina, give the spot back. Looking at Evan's expression, and behind him the tear-streaked, sobbing Tiffany. I shook my head. Impossible. Sabrina. Evan's face had never shown such an unreasonable expression before. I've already been forced by you to agree to marry you. Do you think I don't know you've already arranged the wedding venue? You wouldn't actually go. You're just doing this to make things difficult for Tiffany. Tiffany also stepped forward with reddened eyes. Sabrina, I've worked really hard for this opportunity. After I leave, I won't be able to bother you anymore. And Sabrina can also be at ease. You know perfectly well whether you've truly put in the effort. This project isn't one you'll secure. Tiffany paused, her eyes reddening further. Before applying for this project, she had originally wanted Evan to accompany her, thinking that way I couldn't stop them. But after I repeatedly harmed myself, Evan, recalling the debt my parents owed to the Gerben family, ultimately held his nose and agreed. Tiffany decided to go alone in a fit of anger. But these past few months were mostly fueled by resentment, with no proper preparation done at all. In her previous life, she hadn't succeeded in her application. Evan frowned and said, "You didn't even give her a chance. How can you be so sure she wouldn't get approved?" I shook the documents. "Because Mr. Eddie has already signed and stamped them for me." Sabrina. Evan clenched his fingers, his eyes filled with unprecedented disappointment. "I thought you were just being a bit willful, but I never imagined you could be so malicious. You don't even need this opportunity. Tiffany has worked so hard to get where she is today. I never expected you to go so far as to waste Mr. Eddie's spot just to make things difficult for her." His breathing grew increasingly unsteady as he spoke, his cold gaze fixed on me. "Listen carefully. Although you leveraged your favor to force me into agreeing to marry you, because of this very act, I will never regard you as my wife in this lifetime. I know." I nodded calmly. "I've already experienced it in my previous life." Evan turned and left, wrapping his arm around Tiffany's shoulder to comfort her softly. "It's okay. I'll sponsor you to find other opportunities. Don't be sad." That gentle demeanor was something I had dreamed of countless times in my past life. In my past life I couldn't obtain it, and in this life I still won't. I really should leave now. Evan. I thought Evan wouldn't meet with me again before the wedding. Yet unexpectedly, when I returned to the engagement house I had booked, opening the door brought me face to face with him. Before I could speak, he strode past me and left. I haven't fully recovered yet. On the dining table now sits a bowl of ginger soup, just the right temperature. For a moment, my heart was filled with mixed emotions. Faintly recalling the past life, he treated me with both disdain and care, only because before our parents passed away, they hoped he would take good care of me. So, no matter how fiercely we argued, when I was injured and hospitalized, he didn't hesitate to donate 600 cubic centimeters of blood, even if we had just sworn never to see each other again. The next moment when I was about to be hit by a car, he would still rush forward without hesitation to push me away. He was just repaying a debt with his life. Yet I always demanded that he give me his heart as well. Drinking what might be the last bowl of ginger soup I'd ever taste, I suddenly remembered something. Glancing quickly at the date, my heart clenched. I hastily put down the bowl, putting on my shoes while calling my subordinate on the phone. "Hurry to alley 6 13th Street. It was still pouring rain outside, and I rushed out without even grabbing an umbrella. Following my memory, I arrived at the alley Tiffany was assaulted in during my past life. Sure enough, there were over a dozen tall men surrounding a girl. Don't think you can get away without paying just because your parents are dead. I've given you until today. Can't come up with the money, then pay with your body. Stop it." I smashed a beer bottle over the leader's head, grabbed Tiffany's hand, and ran outside. The rain made the ground slippery, and Tiffany fell hard to the ground. I pulled hard a few times but couldn't lift the person up, while those dozen men had already caught up. With no other choice, I shielded the person behind me. "Run. I'll hold them off." I. Tiffany seemed frightened. hugging herself and trembling. Run. I struggled to fend off the attackers. Even a decade of taekwondo training couldn't withstand the assault from over a dozen men. I can't hold them much longer. Go find the police. I'm so scared. I can't move. Tiffany's voice trembled uncontrollably. Gritting my teeth, I kicked the man away to buy myself some time, then turned back and tried with all my strength to pull her up. But she suddenly screamed and pushed me away violently. The blade pierced through my body, and my breath caught in my throat. Blood. Is that blood? The leader didn't expect me to crash into them either. He clearly hadn't intended to take a life, and now his hand gripping the knife handle was visibly unsteady. I stared wide-eyed at Tiffany. She hugged her head and trembled as she looked at me. I am sorry. I was too scared. Gritting my teeth, I suddenly pulled out the knife and turned to swing it at those people. I never intended to take a life. And now, seeing me lose control again, the dozen or so people were terrified and immediately scattered in all directions. I staggered a couple of steps, nearly losing my balance. The rain blurred my vision, hazy and indistinct, as if footsteps were rapidly approaching. Instinctively, I reached out for support, but a tremendous force shoved me, and my back slammed hard against the wall. Evan held the trembling Tiffany in his arms, glaring at me through gritted teeth. I've already agreed to marry you. Why must you still drive people to utter ruin? The excruciating pain of the wound being torn apart. I clutched my chest, swallowing a mouthful of blood with difficulty. Evan, I'm not. Shut up. Evan picked the person up. I will never believe another word you say. Evan, Tiffany trembled as she leaned into his embrace. Evan immediately lowered his head. His eyes filled with heartache. Don't be afraid. I'll take you to the hospital right now. Evan, I wanted to say more, but collapsed heavily onto the ground. Blood pooled in large, gathering puddles, and in my dazed state, I could only see Evan's receding figure. He carried Tiffany into the car without glancing back at me even once. The icy rain pierced through me, leaving my whole body trembling, and my outstretched hand fell heavily into the bloody water. Before my eyes closed, I seemed to see the car beneath me and the flickering police lights. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on a hospital bed. Through the glass, Evan's face flashed by in an instant. I closed my eyes briefly. He had promised my parents he would come check whether I was dead or not. After all, the perpetrators have all been apprehended. The police told me that if I hadn't shown up in time, Tiffany would have been forced into prostitution in the red light district by now. I understand. In the previous life, Tiffany wasn't saved. By the time Evan rushed in with people, she had already been beaten to the brink of death. It was also from then on that she was traumatized both physically and mentally. And after seeing Evan and my wedding, she took her own life in despair. 30 years into our marriage, Evan has suspected more than once that I was behind that rainy night. And in moments of anger, I would admit to this crime that wasn't mine, pushing our relationship further into the abyss. Fortunately, I've paid it all off. In my past life, he protected me with his life. In this life, I'll protect the one he loves with mine. I woke up to find Evan holding the 4 bottle. The first time I got an 4 as a child, I complained that the medicine was too cold. From then on, every time I had an 4, he would warm it with his hands for me. Our eyes met, and he quickly looked away. I've decided to change the wedding venue to a Rye Lake. His voice was low. I was taken aback. You already knew. Yes. Tiffany told me everything. The phone vibrated. A message from a subordinate. Young miss, Tiffany has agreed to be the bride. I sighed. As long as you can be happy. He glanced at me, a flicker of confusion passing through his eyes, but quickly returned to his usual icy demeanor. It's my fault. You don't need to apologize. This was my own choice. The phone rang. Evan's words were interrupted. I saw the caller ID. Tiffany. Okay. I'm coming right over. Don't be afraid. He quickly hung up the phone and tucked me in. See you at the wedding. I nodded. Don't worry. Even if I can't make it, the gift will. He turned back at the door, frowning. Stop joking around. I smiled without saying a word. He froze for a moment, then quickly turned and walked away. A message from my advisor. Your flight is tonight. Are you feeling well enough? Should I help you reschedule? I replied, no need. Teacher, I'll come to you right away. The wedding day arrived quickly. Evan held the roses, quietly waiting for Sabrina to come out of the dressing room. He had never liked this wedding, but at this moment, he actually felt a glimmer of anticipation. He didn't know when it started, but he had become less resistant to this wedding. Perhaps it was Tiffany, who after being rescued, confessed during the statement that Sabrina had nothing to do with those debt collectors, thinking about how he had pushed someone down in the rain, while his eyes were solely fixed on Tiffany, completely unaware that Sabrina was seriously injured. He couldn't sleep night after night, watching her unconscious state. He was repeatedly terrified that Sabrina would never open her eyes again. It was then that he vowed to take extra care of her for the rest of his life, not out of love, but out of guilt. If she wanted to get married, then they would. She loves Arai Lake, so let's hold the wedding here. Even if he's bound to her for this lifetime, he accepts his fate. The dressing room door opened. Evan tightened his grip on the roses. As a corner of the wedding dress appeared, he felt his heart skip a beat. Evan. Tiffany appeared before him with a shy smile. Evan held his breath. It's you, Evan. Tiffany shyly stepped forward and took his arm. Do you like this surprise? Mr. Evan. A subordinate happily ran over. Miss Sabrina's gift has arrived. He turned his head sharply. A row of Rolls-Royces lined the street, and as the doors opened, roses came pouring out. All of this was prepared personally by Miss Sabrina. There's even a greeting card. Evan lowered his head, but the delicate handwriting struck him like a blow. 9,999 roses, wishing Evan and his beloved eternal happiness. The greeting card crumpled under his grip, startling the subordinate. Young master. Evan's Adam's apple bobbed as he spoke hoarsely. Where is she? Life abroad was exceptionally busy. I also met my fellow student Felix, whom I hadn't seen in 2 years. Every day was spent conducting experiments, writing papers, and seeking investments. It wasn't until I met Evan that I realized I had already been here for half a year. Evan. At that time, Felix was with me. When I saw him, I curiously looked behind him. Since you're out for fun, why didn't you bring Chingue along? Why did you let her marry me? Evan spoke, his hoarse voice making me pause for a moment, as if he hadn't slept well for a long time. Evan. I frowned. But didn't you say you wanted me to marry you? Looking at Evan's reddened eye corners, I finally realized. You didn't know I replaced the person. How could I possibly know? Only then did I realize what a huge misunderstanding we'd had during our last meeting before I left. Evan. I know you don't want to marry me. Who said that? He grabbed my shoulders. I never thought of running away from marriage like you did. Hey, man. You. Get the hell away from me. Felix tried to pull us apart. Evan shot him a fierce glare. I raised my hand to calm Felix. Evan glared at Felix again, then lowered his gaze to me. I'll wait for you to finish these 3 years. Then we'll have our wedding when we go back. Okay, Evan. I gently pushed his hands away. It's impossible for us now. Why? His breathing was unsteady. Didn't you always wish for me to marry you? I'm willing now, and I won't change my mind in the future. Let's not. Some things just can't be changed. In my past 30 years, what tricks haven't I tried? Yet in the end, it all turned to dust. Some people can be friends, confidants, but never lovers. Evan and I are just like that. I looked up, meeting his gaze. The moment I saw his reddened eyes, I froze. I had never seen Evan wear such an expression of hurt. So all those times you cried and begged me to marry you, you were just playing with me. If you say so, I'm not going to explain. It's best to let him think that way, so he can completely give up and go back to be with the one he truly loves. Evan, I was being unreasonable in the past, and I apologize to you here. From now on, let's not see each other anymore. I grabbed Felix's arm, and he immediately understood, turning to leave with me. Before getting in the car, I couldn't help but glance back. He was still standing there, gazing at me intently. A twinge of reluctance stirred in my heart, but I still turned and got into the car. I knew that even if we got married, we'd just be the same resentful couple as in the previous life. But I never expected that Evan wouldn't leave. The next day, when I went downstairs and reached the lobby, I saw a familiar figure. Evan sat on the chair, the corners of his eyes slightly red, as if he hadn't slept all night. The moment he saw me, he quickly stood up. "What are you doing here?" I asked. He said wearily, "I want to see you." "I'm fine. You should go back and take care of Tiffany. She's your wife after all. I never married her." I paused, then turned back. "Then you have nothing to do with me either. Don't worry. The debt my parents owed to the Gerben family, you've already repaid it through me." But for some time after that, every time I went downstairs, I could see him there. I grew a bit impatient. "Go back. There's no way we can have a future together." "It's okay." He sat there with his arms crossed, looking desolate. "I won't disturb you. I just want to look at you a little longer. But the hall is crowded with people coming and going. Everyone keeps asking me. This is making it very difficult for me." His peach blossom eyes gazed at me, finally nodded and got up to leave. Later, he indeed never appeared in the hall again, but a Ferrari appeared downstairs at the apartment. Every time I passed by, I could see him sitting in the car. As I passed by, he looked at me with a desolate expression. I had a bit of a headache. How come, after one party stepped aside in this life, the other still wouldn't let go, when they were like fire and water in the previous life? I knocked on his car window. "Go back home. Even if you're here, I can't go back with you." "I'm not going back." His Adam's apple moved slightly. "I finally found you after so much effort." When those eyes looked over, they were unfathomably deep. In that instant, my heart gave a sudden thud. This was the look he only had in his previous life. Did he also reincarnate? But if he also reincarnated, shouldn't he have immediately married Tiffany? Sighing, I said, "I can't control what you do in public places, but I hope you won't get in my way." His eyes lit up as he nodded. "Okay." The next day, I asked Felix to pick me up. When I saw Felix downstairs, he immediately got out of the car. "Sabrina." I and Felix turned around. He seemed to want to step forward, but remembering his promise to me, he forcibly held back his steps. "Are you going with him?" I nodded. "Every time you stop here, I feel uneasy too. It would be better if my senior brother came to pick me up." "Sabrina." He hurriedly called out to stop me from leaving. "Don't go with him." Looking at his slightly heaving chest, I became somewhat certain he was also reborn. In our past life, Evan and I couldn't stand each other. We could never reach each other's hearts. So he had his confidant outside, and I developed a close male friend. That was Felix after his downfall. He suddenly encountered misfortune, and as a former fellow disciple, I reached out to help him. From then on, he became my devoted assistant. Countless nights when I was even broken, he listened to me cry all night until he coaxed me to sleep. Between Felix and me, there was never any impropriety. It didn't stop Evan from disliking him. It wasn't about possessiveness, but about a man's dignity. And Felix never avoided Evan either. A few years before my death, the conflict between the two men even escalated to physical violence. While treating Felix's wounds, I saw the sorrow and loneliness in his eyes. At that moment, I let out a deep sigh. "If you're unwilling, I can divorce him." Felix visibly panicked for a moment. The words reached my lips, only to dissolve into a sigh. "My voice is too weak to matter. Just being able to accompany you like this is already good enough. From now on, I'll try my best not to worry you." Now as I watch Evan looking at Felix, exactly the same as in the past life. If that's the case, then why insist on repeating the same mistakes? So, I took Felix's arm. "Don't bother with me anymore. You've lost the right to do so." Felix stiffened, then obediently let me take their arm. Evan turned red-eyed. "Does that mean he's qualified then?" "Perhaps." With a smile, I opened the car door. Sabrina. Evan's voice trembled slightly as he called out. I turned around to see him leaning forward, as if eager to grab hold of me. But upon noticing my furrowed brow, he visibly restrained himself, just gazing deeply at me. Sabrina. The heart ached dully. 30 years of time ultimately couldn't be forgotten in an instant. I clenched the car door, gritted my teeth, turned back, and got into the car. It was snowing heavily in the evening. The Ferrari downstairs was gone. When I drew the curtains before bed, I saw a familiar figure downstairs. Evan stood in the snow in a black overcoat, the footprints around him long covered by the heavy snow. He looked up at me from under the umbrella. Our eyes met, and I was lost in memories of a past life. After our marriage, when arguments became too intense, I would also kick him out of the house, because I got angry too often. My heart was always weak. After I drove him out, he would stand downstairs to make sure someone could save me if anything happened. Through wind, frost, rain, or snow, in my past life, these details had indeed moved me. But if mutual devotion comes at the cost of a lover's constant tension, then I'd rather we part ways with grace and freedom, lost to the rivers and lakes. I closed the curtains. The snow fell all night long, tossing and turning. I couldn't sleep, so I got up and asked someone to send him a scarf. At the break of dawn, I eagerly opened the curtains. There was no longer Evan in sight. It seems that guy wasn't foolish enough to just stand there waiting in the cold. After decades of being together, suddenly letting go was ultimately impossible. But who would have thought? After that, I never saw him downstairs again. Evan hasn't shown up for a whole month. I guess he went back to his home country. I feel a bit empty inside. Decades of connection should be completely severed today. After all, there's still some reluctance to let go, but I can't afford to care anymore, because my mental state is getting worse, always feeling like I can't wake up properly. Felix took me to see his doctor friend, but it didn't help. The doctor had no choice but to recommend a few types of tea for me, so I increased the amount of tea I drank to force myself to stay alert. Unexpectedly, not only did it not help, but it made me even sleepier. Another drowsy night. I was about to fall asleep when someone suddenly burst into my bedroom. Before I could react, he had already covered my mouth and forced something into it. A strong smell of blood hit me, and I widened my eyes in shock. Evan. He was covered in blood, breathing heavily, and raised a finger to his lips. I'll take you away. He picked me up and climbed out through the window. We had only run a few steps when shouts erupted behind us. Damn it. He got away. After him. All of you. Evan cursed under his breath and quickened our pace. Suddenly, something came back to me. In my past life, it seemed I had also died from being poisoned. In my previous life, I also loved drinking tea very much. Could it be that all my recent symptoms are because of? But who on earth would do this to me? It's not Evan. So who is that person? How could they harm me so silently in both this life and the last? My thoughts were interrupted, because ahead of us lies the vast ocean. Looking back, countless people and vehicles have blocked the way back. Are we? Surrounded. I instinctively picked up a stick. The next second, my feet left the ground as I was Evan picked up and thrown onto a small wooden boat. It was the only boat by the shore. Stay seated. He pushed the boat into the sea, the icy water biting cold, his breath beginning to tremble. Yet the veins on his arms bulged. I grabbed his arm. Stop pushing. Enough. Get up here now. Fool. This boat can't hold two people. Of course. How would you know if you don't come up? I frantically tried
An opportunity to take advantage. The chronic poison he chose for me was colorless and tasteless, taking years to take effect. Yet the mechanism of death closely resembled ordinary overwork fatalities. I'm constantly swamped with work every day. It's the perfect way to die. He's just waiting for me to die so he can take over my inheritance. It's just a shame that Evan noticed the clues and even obtained crucial evidence. There was no other way. A silent murder had to turn into a chase. Evan disappeared earlier to investigate Harley. After being wide awake all night, it suddenly dawned on me. Evan force-fed me something that seemed to be the antidote. But now, he is no longer here. Not even his body was found. We found a survivor at the scene. Please identify if they are someone you know. The police handed over the photo. I suddenly stood up. He's my fiancé. Felix was momentarily stunned. When Felix and I arrived at the hospital room, Evan had just woken up. Evan. I gripped his hand and called out to him. But his gaze fell upon Felix, who had come along. Let him go. Though the voice was weak, the tone was quite firm. Felix looked at me, then at him, and without waiting for me to speak, voluntarily left the ward. He just came to see you. Nothing more, I said. He seemed displeased. I don't like him. Then are you any more likable? Who allowed you to come ashore with a bomb? And you lied to me about coming back. I was furious. Evan quickly grabbed my hand in return. I had to make sure they couldn't catch up to you. Cough. Luckily, before I could act, your fellow disciple struck first. Felix. I froze. It turns out Evan originally intended to perish together with Harley's people. But Felix acted first against them. Fortunately, Evan was only affected by the shockwave and sustained no serious injuries. You are just like me after all. I held back my tears. He smiled without speaking. What exactly are you thinking? Now that you've finally gotten rid of me, isn't that a good thing? Ahem. What do you mean by getting rid of you? He patted my head. I've long considered you as my wife. I was stunned. How is that possible? Didn't we argue every day? He smiled. At first, I really was resistant to you, always thinking I married you because you were trying to repay a favor with demands. But 30 years. That's more than enough time for a person to see their true feelings clearly. 30 years. That's more than enough time for a person to accept their fate. It's just that our marriage started with arguments. And from then on, we could never rein it in. Actually, my biggest regret in my past life was never confessing my feelings to you. Sabrina, I've actually loved you for a long time. My eyes reddened. Forget it. You just can't tell the difference between gratitude and true love. How could that be? He grew somewhat anxious. I was reborn at the wedding with Tiffany. And even before knowing the bride was you, I had already made up my mind. Like flipping a coin. Heads or tails doesn't matter. What matters is the answer in your heart before the coin has landed. Is that so? I looked at him. Then I'm certain too. He looked at me somewhat nervously. My fiancé. In that instant, Evan's eyes held a starlight I had never seen before. On the day I returned to the country, Evan prepared a grand wedding for me. Felix also appeared at the scene as a groomsman. Evan was initially resistant to this arrangement. Just like in his previous life, he still held a grudge against this romantic rival of his. For a moment, both of them froze. I admit, I like her. In this life and the last. Evan frowned deeply, but Felix changed the subject. So I cannot accept that her pain was caused by me. Harley wouldn't have suffered this undeserved misfortune if she hadn't gotten involved with me. So I admit defeat. Mr. Evan, I hope you won't make her cry all night like in the previous life. Evan narrowed his eyes. I know that better than you do. At the wedding, he placed the diamond ring on my finger and whispered in my ear. The beginning of marriage often runs through the entirety of two people's lives. Once, we began an unhappy marriage with swords drawn and bows bent. Now, I want to try a different way. Sabrina, I love you. Every single day for the rest of my life. I'll say this to you. I looked up, gazing deeply at him. I love you too. This lifetime's marriage begins with love. For the rest of our lives, only love will run through it all.